campus to the car, the bullhorn to the microphone. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Hey everybody, Charlie Kirk here. Welcome back here with the phenomenal Peter Schweizer. Red-handed, how American elites get rich helping China win. And I think, Peter, you could correct me, HarperCollins, is that the imprint here? They're saying they've never had such pre-orders of a book ever. Is that right? That's what I heard.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the book is selling great. I'm very thankful to everybody who's got interest in this. And Charlie, I'm sure you'd probably say the same. It gives me hope that there are millions of people out there that are concerned about these issues. And I got to be thankful for that.
I totally agree. My goal is for you to beat To Kill a Mockingbird. Nothing against that book. I actually kind of like it, but that would save Western civilization. I think HarperCollins owns the rights to Kill a Mockingbird. I could be wrong. Okay, Peter.
I think you're right.
Let's get into the specifics of Joe Biden. He's right on your cover. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I first reported on the Biden family's commercial ties with China back in 2018 and believed it to be a story about cronyism and corruption and self-dealing and Chinese influence peddling. But Charlie, with new evidence that's come out from the laptop, from emails from some of Hunter Biden's business partners, we got access to their email accounts. The story has taken a significant and I think very troubling change. And that change is we are now talking about a story that enters the realm of the intelligence world and possibly espionage. What do I mean by that? Well, we decided to look back and trace who actually made those commercial deals happen in China for the Biden family. And what we found is that the Biden family and their companies, Hunter's companies, got some $31 million from Chinese businessmen in deals. And every single one of these deals was put together by a Chinese businessman who had ties to the highest levels of Chinese intelligence. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's a $20 million deal where Hunter Biden gets an ownership stake in a financial management company that's financed by the Chinese government, of all things. He, of course, has no background in finance or anything like that, but he gets this deal. Who makes that deal happen? Who gives Hunter Biden this windfall of money? Well, his name is Che Feng, and Che Feng, at the same time he is helping this deal happen for Hunter Biden, is business partners with the Vice Minister for State Security in China. This is their spy agency, their KGB. And that person's job at the Ministry for State Security is recruiting foreign nationals to spy for China. He's also reportedly responsible for North American intelligence operations. There's another businessman that helps make that deal happen, and in another instance transfers $5 million to one of Hunter Biden's companies. And that guy, Mr. Zhao, is business partners with the family of the former Minister of State Security, the guy who runs the entire spy apparatus in China. So what you see, Charlie, is this concentration of people connected to Chinese intelligence who are throwing deals at the Biden family, and the Biden family are taking those deals. And the question everybody has to ask themselves, I think we both know the answer to this, is the Chinese intelligence service, is the Chinese state, are these businessmen just philanthropists? Of course not. Of course not. They are doing this because they expect something in return, and the deals kept flowing. So my belief is that they got certain things in return, and we have to now entertain the notion that the Biden family is compromised.
It's a crime syndicate the CCP is running. The mob doesn't give money to the local charity because they care about the orphans or the disadvantaged. They want something out of it. How much money has the Biden family received from the CCP?
Yeah, so we believe it's some $31 million. That's based on the deals we know. There could possibly be other deals. And what's important to point out here, Charlie, is that it's people that will, on the political left say will acknowledge that Hunter Biden did these things. They try to sort of siphon it off and say, well, that's Hunter Biden. That's a Hunter Biden problem. The problem is the other thing we point out in the book, and there's numerous examples of this, Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, throughout the time he's vice president, probably still today, as far as I know, have intertwined finances. We know that during the vice presidency, Hunter Biden was paying Joe Biden's bills. Some of those are kind of rudimentary, that he'd pay a $300 phone bill so Joe Biden could have this kind of strange back channel private telephone line. But he also paid for renovations on his home up in Delaware, and there are other expenses. So when Hunter Biden is getting these foreign deals and collecting this money, one of the beneficiaries is Joe Biden himself.
So on page 37 of your book, Red Handed, that everyone should go buy at least 5 copies of and give to your loved ones, and honestly give to your elected official if you see them and hand it. Be like, what are you doing about this? Don't just tweet about it. You mentioned someone that I was going to ask you about, Peter, which is Tony Bobulinski. Tony Bobulinski seemed to be a very ethical person. He had no reason to do what he did. Tucker Carlson aired his interview. It was viewed by 10 million plus people. And then he got memory hold, to use an Orwell term. We just kind of stopped talking about him.
Yeah.
What's the latest with Tony Bobulinski? Because he told us very explicitly, in no uncertain terms, 10% for the big man. The big man is Joe Biden. We met in like the back of the Beverly Hilton Hotel or something, right? In this kind of weird, like clandestine meeting. And Joe Biden came and he was like happy-go-lucky, but it was very clear that he was being factored into the deal with the Chinese. Tell us about the curious case of Tony Bobulinski.
Yeah, Tony, I think, is somebody who's a private person. I mean, he's not a political person at all. And he saw this happening and decided to alert the public to it, let the public know what was going on. And everything he said has been confirmed by the documents in the laptop and elsewhere. That deal, the 10% for the big guy phrase, involved a Chinese company called CEFC. CEFC was run by a Chinese businessman named Yi, who before taking this job had actually run an organization that was funded and directed by Chinese military intelligence. This company, CEFC, was located in a section of Beijing that is controlled by the Chinese military. So there's all kind of red flags. And, as Tony Bobulinski recounts, he found out pretty quickly who he was dealing with on the Chinese end, which troubled him. But he also saw that what this was for Hunter Biden was not any kind of legitimate business. This was about him collecting money, and that Joe Biden was intimately involved. So I think Tony Bobulinski, as far as I know, really has decided to return to private life. Hopefully he will make an appearance again and discuss further some of his findings. But to me, he was very, very credible because he was not political.
Yes.
He was brought into this deal because of his expertise. He's a patriot. He loves his country, and he saw red flags all over the place when he got involved. It's interesting to point out, by the way, Charlie, that the CEFC that has all these ties to Chinese intelligence, the plan was for Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the representatives from CEFC to actually share office space in Washington, D.C. In the emails, Hunter talks about getting signage put up to that effect. The only reason that does not happen is one of the company executives from CEFC gets arrested by the FBI on espionage and bribery charges in New York, and that blows the whole thing up. So it just tells you this fundamental question of the Biden family being compromised has to be looked at. I believe they are, and I believe that there's substantial evidence that they are.
So let me ask you a technical question that I'm just curious, and you don't have to, divulge your trade secrets. So you say $31 million that you know of. Peter, how do you find this information? I mean, it's not like you could type it into Yahoo or Bing. Like I'm just curious. Can you just kind of give our audience a little bit of an inside peek? Like you have a team I know that works on this. I'm super curious about that.
Yeah, the challenge a lot of times you face in research today is not too little information, but too much. So the 31 figure is very straightforward. 20 million comes from the deal that he did with BHR, which is that private equity fund. And that information comes from a University of Chicago business school professor who looks at the size of the fund that Hunter was brought into, his 10% ownership stake, and says, this is what this is worth by sort of industry standards. It could be worth more, but that's what it's worth. So in some cases, it's getting expert analysis, serious expert analysis. In other instances, for example, the other 11 million, you have $5 million transferred to one of Hunter Biden's companies, another $6 million that's transferred to Hunter into some of his companies. That actually comes from so-called suspicious activity reports or SARS reports that are filed with the Treasury Department. Anytime a U.S. bank sees money flowing from a, let's say, sketchy source or a troubling source to what is regarded as a politically connected figure, and Hunter Biden would be one of those, obviously, it gets flagged and it goes to the Treasury Department. Those reports relating to Hunter Biden were released by the Senate last year. So we went and looked at those reports. We then went to Chinese corporate records and we looked at Chinese business publications and other sources to trace who were involved in these companies. And then we, of course, found out through the Hunter Biden laptop who were the people that made those deals happen. And then we did a detailed research analysis on Chinese sources on who those individuals are. Every bit of information that we use is footnoted in the back, unlike some sources that were used in the Steele dossier.
Fusion
we do
GPS.
not use any. Yeah, we don't use any anonymous sources. As far as I'm concerned, anonymous sources are basically worthless. You should be able to show them and share them, and people should be able to replicate them on their own. And you can do that with this book.
I have the book in front of me, and I am not exaggerating. There are 100 pages of notes and citations. I'm just kind of estimating. That's about right. Yeah, 100 pages. If you count the index and you count the notes. The Fusion GPS dossier definitely did not have that. And that we have about a minute remaining, right, Peter, and I think that's so interesting. And your answer is straightforward, which is like we just did the work. Like we just looked at what was out there. We went into the documents. You know, it's amazing. We have multi-billion-dollar media companies that wouldn't touch this stuff. Yeah. But if an investigative journalist says, okay, well, what would this be and what would that be? $31 million to the current president of the United States. You think that would concern some people. Certainly did when Trump wanted to do a hotel deal or something in Moscow. That was something they definitely wanted to talk about. In the next segment, Peter, I want to talk about any one of the 6 that you have on the bottom of your book that you think our audience should deserve to know about Pelosi or LeBron James or Elon Musk or Boehner. It's bipartisan, and this is really important for people to realize that the rise of China has been fueled by our decisions. We made this happen. We have subsidized it. We facilitated it. We've covered up for it. And the Chinese Communist Party is on pace to eclipse us in every single capacity, militarily, technologically, and they believe that their view of civilization is superior to ours. These people do not mess around. They want global conquest. How American Elites Can Get Rich Helping China Win Red-Handed by Peter Schweizer. I'm learning so much from elite capture to, what was that, big help, bad mouth? It's fascinating. So check out the book, everybody. One more segment with the great Peter Schweizer. And we're going to ask about the other 6 elites he has on the front page of his book. Charlie Kirk, be right back.